Evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of What the Amateurs Can Learn from the Professional Runners. And today I'm very privileged. I've got an amazing guest who is a world record holder and a British marathon champion, and been to the Olympics, and has so many other achievements which we'll discuss. So I'd like to welcome onto the channel Aly Dixon. So thanks for coming on, Aly. How are you tonight?
Evening, thank you. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. So, I've named some of your achievements, and you've got some amazing achievements. So you've been to the Commonwealth Games, you've been to the Rio Olympics, the World and European Championships, and you've got a world record. So just talk about your achievements. Just talk about some of them.
I think kind of the quick CV is 6 World Championships, 5 Europeans, 2 Commonwealths and 1 Olympics. So quite a decent CV for a wee lass from Sunderland. It's one of those things where, you know, as a kid, I always dreamt of getting a GB vest, and I got my first one, and I never thought it would happen again. But I've went on, you know, like I say, I think it's actually 12 representations across all the surfaces, road, track and cross country. And yeah, just finally making it to those Olympic Games was just, I look back now and I see the last few weeks people like Steph Davis saying it's amazing, it hasn't sunk in yet. And I'm like, I'm 5 years on, it still hasn't sunk in yet. So, you've got time to get used to it. But yeah, like I say, not bad CV for just an ordinary girl from Sunderland who I'm the first to put my hand up and say I'm not the most naturally talented. I've just worked damn hard for all those achievements.
Yeah, no, you certainly have. I mean, I'm looking at some of your PBs. So we'll go through them. 5K, 15:52, amazing time. 10K, 32:17. Half marathon, 1:10:38. Sub 2 hour, 2 hours 29:06 for your marathon, and then you've got this 50K world record 3:07:20. Talk about this world record, because that's amazing. And it's a current world record, yeah.
Yes, for the next few days anyway. Des Linden over in Eugene is, I think it's in the next kind of day or two. She's having a crack at that, and I'm fully expecting her to, smash my time to pieces. She's a 2:22 runner, so it should be quite a soft challenge for her, really. But it was an unexpected record for me. I got to the point where I'd pretty much ticked all the boxes in the marathon, and there wasn't anything else that I wanted to do in the marathon world. So I thought, let's have a new challenge. And I saw the 50K was coming up, and I'd always had an eye on the British record, which was 3:16. And I thought I could achieve that. So I put my name forward for the team for the championships, got selected, and went into it. It was my first and only ever ultra. And it was quite good because I just went in under the radar, press conference, we're talking to the other girls, and I was never mentioned in anything. And my main focus for that day was just to win. I wanted to win the World Championship. And it wasn't until the last the course was 9K, I think it was, a loop. And I came around the top bend, and the team manager shouted, "You're going to smash the world record." And by the time I came around the U-turn, I looked back and I was like, what is the world record? I hadn't even looked at the time. So yeah, the last 4.5K, I knew that I had without sounding big-headed, I knew I had the race run, and I just absolutely legged it down there. And yeah, to finish, having achieved the goal of winning the race and setting the British record, and then everybody's like, "You've just broken the world record by," I think I took about 80 seconds off it, and the record had stood for 31 years, so it was quite a historic. But then I felt really bad because I didn't know anything about the record, and the person who held the record was apparently this massive figure in ultra running, and I'd never heard of her, so then I felt a bit of an imposter. But yeah, just, it was one of those days where you dream about them, and they're just utter crazy when they do eventually happen.
So that's, wow, it's amazing. So you just turned up, you went to do the race, you aimed for the win, and then you were told around the course that you're going to break the record. I mean, how did that feel? You just felt like I have to go. Well, you said you had to go faster, or did you just want to make sure?
Yeah, like I didn't have to go faster. Kind of, my race strategy was to take it, not push like as hard as I possibly could, but to take it quite steady for the first, especially 42k, because I've never raced beyond the 42k. I trained up to 30 mile, but training and racing is completely different. So once I got to that 42k, it was going into the unknown. So I wanted to get to that point, feeling strong, feeling comfortable, and knowing that I had something left for that last 8k. And it worked out really well. It was I say it's a mixed race. The men and women set off, but soon separated. And as our guys were coming back down one side of the road and we were going up, I was shouting over to them, like, "Come on, guys, you're looking good, you're looking strong." And when we finished, we were all like, "How the hell could you talk so much when you were racing?" But that was my way of judging my pace and my effort level. I knew if I could do that, that I was running within myself. And once I finished and they said, "You've broke the world record," I did kind of kick myself and thought, should have pushed on and, made it a little bit faster so I could kind of like hold on to it for a bit longer. But like I said, it was never on my radar. I never looked at the 50k and thought, this is the first time I'm doing it, let's go and break the world record. Because, you then kind of like go, well, it's just a little bit, you're then tempted to go a bit too fast and the risk keep blowing up. And like I say, my big aim for that race was just to win the race. And yeah, I had a bonus to break the world record in the process.
No, that's amazing, and huge congrats, congratulations for it. My wife, she always watches these, so she's put a message up. She said, do you think if you were under the radar and knew the previous record times, you would still, if you weren't under the radar and you knew the previous record times, would you still have had the same race strategy?
Like I just said there, if I'd been aiming for records and then you're chasing times, you've got a bigger risk of blowing up. And because it was a new distance to us, although it is only, an extra, half an hour or so of running, there's still that big chance of blowing up. So I don't think I would have. In the end, I was quite comfortably under the record, so there was no need to kind of take it any faster. But yeah, I think, for some reason, I thought the record was like 3:06. Like I said, I'd never really looked it up. It was just a figure I had in my head. And when I think of world records, I don't think of myself as breaking them and achieving them. So it's not something where I'd go, "Oh, let's look it up because I might be capable of this."
Yeah.
And I think I would have put a little bit more pressure on myself if I had known that I was within my grasp. So yeah, I'm glad I went into it kind of pretty blind and a bit naive.
Probably the best way to do it. So you mentioned earlier that it was, I think you mentioned that it's going to be your only ultra run. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So, did a smash and grab. I've ticked all the boxes. I don't need to go back.
So there's no plans. So there's one question here. Any plans to go further? So I'm guessing there isn't.
Not at the minute. Not like competitively. I've got Comrades on my bucket list, but I do think that'll be one that'll always stay on my bucket list because I just can't imagine going and racing, 6-7 hours. It's like I'd need to stop for my tea halfway around. I'd get hungry. But yeah, it's kind of, I never say never because, this last year has been the prime example. We don't know what's going to happen. And, there's all sorts of things. I know I'm getting older and slower now, so maybe it's going longer and slower is the way forward. But yeah, at the minute, I've got no desire to go any further or do another one.
Well, and even if you see the records broken in a few days' time, it still won't change your mind.
No, I'm hoping Des, if she breaks it, she like I say, she kind of obliterates it, puts it sub 3 hours, and then I won't be tempted. If she took maybe 10 seconds off, I'd be like, oh, that's still possible. But yeah, I'm expecting, her to take a good 10 minutes off my time. Like I said, she's a 2:22 runner at her best. I'm a 2:29 runner at my best. So she's got that massive window. She could literally jog round and have an ice cream halfway and still break my time.
Well, fingers crossed she doesn't, but all the best to her as well, though. So there's one here, another question. So I think you touched on it briefly. So given your experience of the 50K, is there anything that you would have changed in your build-up if you to do it again?
No, I think my training went really well for the 50K. Pretty much the same as what I do for marathon, apart from I put a couple of extra miles onto my long run. So I did 2 30-mile runs, and I think it was 4 26-mile runs, and then all the rest was just exactly what I do for a marathon, because I looked at it and it's pretty much a marathon with an extra little bit. You know, it's closer to the marathon distance than what the half marathon is to the marathon distance. So yeah, I just looked at it as an extra large marathon, and you're not run as intense. So I got myself into good marathon shape and then just backed off the intensity come race day. And yeah, it seemed to work out. I finished feeling good, and I do look back and think I probably could have went a minute, maybe 90 seconds faster if I'd really put my foot to the ground. But then, like I said earlier, I could have blown up and lost it all. So, you know, my aim was to win the race, and I did that. And yeah.
That's really interesting. So we'll move on then. So you've got all these achievements. What obviously going to the Olympics. What is the most standout for you? What, I mean, is it the Olympics?
In terms of kind of dreams come true, yeah, you know, you can't get better than the Olympics. It's the greatest sporting stage on earth, and you know, there's only a handful of people. In Britain, there's 5,500 people ever been to a summer or winter Olympics.
Oh,
so
wow.
you know, it's not very many when you think how long the Olympics have been around and what our population is. So yeah, that is like the ultimate. And pretty much, unless you're a footballer, pretty much every sport you do, every kid wants to go to the Olympics. So yeah, that was the ultimate. But in terms of actual standout performances, I think for me, my best two were my 10K 32:17, which was just done at a local road race, and my half marathon, 70 minutes and 37 seconds, which was done at the World Half in Copenhagen. I think I finished like 13th, I think it was there. And yeah, I think they're my best two performances above everything else.
Okay, nice. And we'll talk about London. Everyone talk. So we'll talk a bit about London Marathon. So you've done 5 of the majors, and we spoke beforehand. You said you want to do the 6. You want to try and get the full 6. I mean, I've seen photos of you in London where you were high-fiving the people on the way down, and you look like you're really enjoying it. Is London your favourite marathon, or is it is the others?
I like them all for different reasons. At first, I absolutely hated London. I made my marathon debut at London in 2010 and hated pretty much the whole, apart from the first 10 mile. And I then went to New York in the November, and it was the complete opposite. I just loved the whole thing, you know, typical Yankee over enthusiasm. They just totally embraced the whole thing. Crowds on the street were just so loud, and yeah, I ran really, you know, the fabled negative split there. I ran a PB and totally fell in love with the distance at that one. So that's always special because it was kind of, yeah, the one where the love happened. In terms of actual enjoyment and crowds and everything, Boston was just amazing. And Boston's a course where you don't go there to run fast, you go there to conquer the course, because you know it's tough, it's hilly, the downhills are worse than the uphills, the weather can be so unpredictable, and yeah, you just kind of go there, and like I say, you don't chase time, you just race it, and you can take your time to kind of soak in the atmosphere. And the Scream Tunnel at 14 Mile at the Girls' College was just, I've never heard noise like it. My ears were ringing for miles after it. And yeah, I just totally loved that one. Going back to London, though, you've got to kind of, it's where I ran my PB, it's where I qualified for the Olympics. So, you know, you've got the home course, pretty much every step of the way somebody's shouting your name because, you know, you've got your GB vest on and that. So, yeah, they're all kind of special for different reasons. Tokyo, for me, it was a nightmare. I had bad stomach, didn't run very well, but it was kind of made a bit more special because I was in the elite race and it was only last year. So the mass race had been cancelled. So I felt like I was running for the 40,000 people that couldn't run. So even though I was having a nightmare of a run, I made sure I finished because I knew I was in the privileged position of being out there and being able to run. Berlin, I don't really remember much about it because I was just so focused on hitting a certain time and getting that Olympic qualifying time. So, it kind of took the enjoyment of the occasion away because, people ask us what Berlin course is like. I'm like, I don't know, I don't remember it because I was just focused on, I've got to run 5:43, 5:43, 5:43. So, but then, I ran 2:29:30 and got my Olympic qualifying time. So it's special in that way, but sadly, I don't remember anything else about the race.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, you're in the zone and focused.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
So we talked about marathons, and we've talked about your other PBs in 5Ks and 10Ks. On here, we've got another question. What's your favourite distance? Is it a marathon?
Yeah, I love the marathon in that it's just so unpredictable. It's a cruel mistress. It doesn't give a damn who you are, what you've done, how your training's gone. It's just on that day, if it decides that you're not going to have a good one, it'll chew you up and spit you out. And, you go to somewhere like London or New York or Boston, and you've got the professionals up the front, world record holders, Olympic champions, and they're going through exactly the same as the guys at the back running 6-7 hours. They're going over the same 26.2 miles, they're going through the same emotions. Obviously, they're doing it a lot quicker, but we're all the same, we can all relate. And I think there's a lot of respect around every marathon runner. I get people say to me, "Oh, I've done a marathon, but it took us 7 hours," and they kind of feel a bit ashamed. I'm like, you know what? I've got much more respect for that because you're out twice as long. I couldn't imagine being on my feet for that long. Like I said about comrades earlier, I'm like, fair play to you, well done. It's probably harder for you guys than what it is for us. So yeah, I love the marathon just for the whole challenge, and most of them are like big party carnival atmospheres as well. So yeah, that one's definitely my favourite distance.
Oh, that's good to know. So we'll move on to training then. So firstly, we've got a question here. So what's your currently weekly mileage, and are you currently training for something at the moment?
Not training for anything in particular, no, just enjoying it. I don't really have a set mileage. I try to aim for around 60 to 70 mile a week just now, but I'm at that stage now where it's like if I wake up in the morning and I'm tired, my body's hurting, or it's cold or wet or something like that, I just go, I don't have to do this, and I don't do it. Whereas in the past, when I've been training for things, I've had a focus, I'd get out that door no matter what the weather, whether my body feels tired or not. So yeah, it is a different kind of mindset and a training focus now, but I'm still out there, like I say, doing, I think the last 5 or 6 weeks I've averaged about 67 mile a week, and a faster session in there. Maybe there's a little bit of tempo if the legs are okay later in the week, and then a long run about 18 miles. And yeah, just my main focus right now is to enjoy it.
That's fair. I think it's all about enjoying it, isn't it?
That's it. The day I stop enjoying it is the day that I'll just, throw the trainers away and say I'm not bothering anymore. I don't care. I've done a 5K this morning, nearly 2 minutes slower than my best, but I enjoyed it. I love being out there. I still got that buzz. My legs and my lungs are hating us for it just now, but yeah, I still had that enjoyment and that love. If I'd came off it saying I hated that, then, the race shoes would have went in the bin and that would have been it.
So yeah, well done for today's race. So with your training, so firstly, do you have any rest days?
Yes, I might not have a complete rest day. It might be active recovery. So I might jump on the bike and do an hour, 90 minutes on the bike. Or I might just do a half-hour very easy run. But if I feel I need a rest day, like this week I've had 2 rest days. I wasn't feeling great on Wednesday, so I cut my session short, walked home, and then rested through to Saturday. Whereas, again, in the past, I wouldn't have done that. I would have trudged through the session, getting slower, confidence getting knocked, and then the next day I would have went out for my run because it was on a piece of paper to say that I had to. And yeah, but I tried to have every kind of 2 to 3 weeks, I'll have a complete rest day, just where I do absolutely nothing and just let everything reset. But yeah, I enjoy going out on the bike or jumping on the turbo, so I use it as active recovery.
So you mentioned the bike. So you obviously cross train. Is that so? Do you do the bike quite often, or do you do other cross training as well? Just
the bike at the minute. Beginning of the year when I wasn't running as much, so I was only hitting like kind of 40, 50 mile a week. So I was topping up quite a bit on the bike. I would be doing the bike kind of 5 or 6 times a week, kind of covering about 150 mile on the bike on Zwift and doing some sessions, trying to build my FTP and that. But then once I got back into running sessions and the mileage got up past that kind of 60, I knocked the head on the head and only kind of do maybe once or twice a week now, and just for kind of recovery purposes. I don't try to do anything hard because I just find that I'm not recovering as much from kind of the run sessions to then do a hard session on the bike as well. So yeah, I've just got to protect kind of the neuromuscular system, because CV wise, aerobically, I'm fine. I can go and, I could probably go and knock in 100-mile week if I wanted to, but it will be slow and low quality. And it's like, well, what's the point? I'd rather do 60 to 70 and get some decent sessions in than just go and trudge around 100. So yeah. I don't chase average anymore.
That's fair enough. And do you think the cross training helps your running?
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit I got was when I was training for Boston. So I was only running once a day for Boston because I was just coming back off an Achilles injury. And I did a lot on the bike just to build my quads up for the hills in Boston as well. And the week before Boston, I did a local 10K and ran 33:20. So, I did that off once a day, probably about 80 mile a week running, but then also kind of, like I say, about 100 mile on the bike. So yeah, it helped a lot on that. I went on to run 2:35 at Boston, which quite a decent time for a 40-year-old at Boston. That's and yeah, just like I said, your heart and your lungs don't know the difference whether you're swimming, running on an elliptical, on a bike, as long as they're getting worked. And, some people say cycling's not good for running because it uses different muscles. It's actually really good for me because I don't use my quads enough when I run. So building up my quad strength on the bike helps to improve. I can always tell when I've done a good section on the bike, I'm a lot better running up hills. Whereas if I have a few weeks off the bike, I just lose all my hill form.
That's fair enough. So talking about, you mentioned your Achilles injury. So someone's actually asked, perfect time has asked them, how did you deal with the mental aspects of being injured? I know you mentioned about the bike.
Yeah. I've been really lucky, touch wood, with injuries that, I've been running internationally for nearly 12 years now, and I haven't had many major injuries. I've had long spells where I've been injury free, and it hasn't really kind of hit us where like I'm really fit and then I get injured. So my first big injury was at my first World Championships in 2011. And I knew going into it that I was injured, and in hindsight I shouldn't have ran, but back then it was like, this could be my only World Championship, so I'm doing it whether I'm injured or not. And the physios and the doctors were like, you're crazy, but you're an adult, we can advise you not to run, but we can't actually stop you because it's not like endangering life or anything. So I ran, and the next day we got a scan and discovered I had 3 broken bones in my foot.
Oh, and
wow. Yeah. And I didn't run again for 3 months. But because that was in 2011 and I was on this kind of upward projection, obviously we had the London Games the year after. So that was this big carrot dangling at the end of the stick. And that just kept us focused. I just kept on thinking, I've got back then was the B standard. I've just got to keep as fit as I can in the pool. So I was aqua running, twice a day, every day. As soon as we allowed to put any weight through the foot, I was on the elliptical trainer, on the Alter G. And I probably overdid things at the time because, that's what we do when you're injured. You think that you've got to do double the amount of cross training. But I came out of it really, really fit. And then I got into the mindset that I'd lost 3 months of training, even though I hadn't. I'd put in 3 months of really good training. And then I started running just crazy mileage and crazy sessions. And yeah, pretty much killed myself off once I got back running. And yeah, kind of your mindset does change. And like I say, we get that bad mindset where we think we've got to do more because we're not running. There's that fallacy where if you're on the bike, you've got to do 3 times as much as what you would when you're running. And now I'm like, no, you don't. If you're on the bike and it's replacing a recovery run, you do the same amount of time as what you would on a recovery run, because you're not looking at it as, you're not trying to improve your FTP or whatever. And even now when I talk to cycle coaches, they're like, no, you don't need to do that on the bike. You need to do like half an hour worth of work. So yeah, it's kind of, it's crazy how our minds do play tricks on us when we're injured and we think we're losing ground, even though we're not. And at the end of the day, we're doing ourselves more harm because we're not allowing the body to rest and recover, which is what it needs when you're injured.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? When you're injured, you need to recover. Well, you need to be recovering. For it to heal. So there's one. So Bradley here said, "Evening, guys. So, what is your most important part of your regime, which you would contribute most to your consistency of your training?"
I made a few big changes back in, like when I got that injury in 2011, going into 2012. And one of the big things I've always put it down to is I started doing proper S&C work. So it wasn't just kind of going to the gym and lifting a few dumbbells and doing bicep curls and whatever. I employed a proper strength and conditioning coach. She worked at the EIS. She now works for Man City. She really knew her stuff, and she just got me physically robust and strong. And from then I had about 4 or 5 years where I just, I hardly saw a physio bed. Like I did have regular physio just to make maintenance and that, but there was nothing kind of going in going, I've got this niggle, I've had to miss 2 days and whatever. Just, it give us consistent training. And the other thing, I took over my coaching myself. So I was writing all my run training myself. And I was just a lot more aware of what I was doing, and I was training a lot smarter. So I was still training hard, but I wasn't scared to take a rest day if I needed it. I was, I'd sometimes argue with myself, did I need it or not? But I would program them in a lot more regularly as well. I changed my programming to a 10-day cycle rather than a 7-day cycle. Your body doesn't know whether it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or whatever. It just knows that it's tired and can't do another session. So, put another recovery day in there. And yeah, just listening to my body a lot more and being a lot more honest with myself, because it's great when you've got a coach and they're a second pair of eyes, but they're only getting the feedback that you're telling them, and there's nobody knows you better. So a coach can easily go, "Oh, just get on with it." But if you're really, really knackered, you're like, "No, I actually need a rest here, or at least a few days easier." And I got a lot more relaxed at doing that. And at first it was hard because I felt like I was kind of slacking in training, but then as the performance started picking up, I was like, maybe this is actually the way to.
So are you still there?
Hey, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I think the internet froze. Sorry about that. Yeah. You're talking about your training, and we talk about. So the next one was the question I was going to ask before it cut out. Was have you ever struggled with motivation, especially with COVID now? How has that impacted your training? So someone's asked, have you ever struggled with motivation or consistency, and how have you, if so, how have you overcome it?
Yeah, when I was running well and kind of, I had big goals and strict focus, I didn't really struggle with it because you've got that external motivation of, you want to make a world championship, you want to make an Olympics and that kind of thing. But I think kind of the last 6 months, especially, there has been a few times where you just think, why am I doing this? I got injured in October. I didn't run for a month. I just started getting back into it, and then I got a sore Achilles, and I'd have another 10 days off. And just all through that, it's so easy now just to sit back and convince myself, I'm too old for this. I can't run as fast. Why I don't have to do this? Why am I doing this? And sometimes it has been hard to get my kit on and get out the door. And especially when there's been no races on the horizon. It was like nearly 9 months since I last raced. So yeah, I think, we're all pretty much in the same boat, maybe sailing quite differently, but yeah, it has been tough. But at the end of the day, I just remember kind of my main reason why I run, and that's because I love it. So if there's any time where motivation is low, I'll leave the watch at home. I'll just go out onto one of my favorite routes and I'll just enjoy it. I don't worry anymore about kind of hitting sub sevens because it looks good for Strava or anything like that. I'll just go out and just enjoy it and remind myself why it is that we do it.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's all about you've got to enjoy it. Because otherwise, there's no point doing it if you're not enjoying it.
I always said that my body would tell me when it was time to retire because it would start hurting and it wouldn't be able to perform the way I wanted to. But I've changed that in the last kind of year to 18 months, and now it'll be my heart that tells us when it's time to retire, because I've managed to get my head around the fact that, I'm nearly 43. Obviously, I can't run as fast as what I was when I was like 36, 37. But I still love it. I still enjoy it. I still got that buzz being out racing this morning. Like I say, I was nearly 2 minutes slower than my PB, but I still finished and had that runner's high. And, if that hadn't been there, then I would have questioned things. But at the minute, I've spent the last 6 weeks, I can't wait to race. I can't wait to race, even though I know I'm not in good shape. And, it was like Christmas this morning when I woke up. I was so excited.
It's like, well, it's a whole buzz, isn't it? It's a whole different atmosphere when you have race day. Yeah. Nowadays, everyone's like, there's a question come up. So, what do you think about new carbon-based shoes? So, everyone's trying to wear them. Do you think they give you they appear to give you an advantage? Do you think they give an advantage? Do you run with them?
I wore them this morning, and anybody that follows me on Strava will say that I put a note. I can't get away with them. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's my running style, because I do have a very awkward running style, or if it's because I've just spent so many years running in a normal shoe, or what. But I don't know if they help us or not, because obviously I'm no longer in PB shape, and I'm never going to be in PB shape. I think the 10K that I mentioned earlier that I did the weekend before Boston, I do think they helped us on that. I was wearing the 4% there, and I didn't think I was in 32:30 shape. In fact, 32:20 shape. Sorry, 33:20 shape. But that's what I ran. And looking back now, I'm like, that was probably the shoes. And, I ran pretty much all of my PBs in pre-carbon shoes. I wore a pair of Streak when I ran 2:29.06. So at the end of the day, I know it was me that ran that. I do think now a lot of people, not everybody respond great to them, but a lot of people are gaining kind of 2 to 3 minutes over the marathon, at that kind of 2:30 for the girls sort of thing. So you've got girls running kind of times where you think, are they really a 2:30, 2:31, 2:32 type runner? But, they're here and they're here to stay. So we've just got to accept it and get on with it. I'll wear them as long as they don't hurt us, which I think the ones this morning have hurt us. But, you've just got to accept it and get on with it, and you can't be moaning saying, oh, in my day and all that, because things improve, technology comes along and everything improves, nutrition improves, and we can't just stand still and all be running the same and on cinder tracks and everything.
Yes, it's like the swimsuits back in I think, the early 2000s when they were breaking all records. They banned them, but now the records have been broken.
Yeah, but that's it. If World Athletics said we're banning them and it's all getting reset, then fair dues. That's what we should have done. But I think that ship's passed now. The swimsuits, they never really got down to the general public. These shoes have, like that race I've done this morning, it was literally, people rocking up in Alpha Flies and Vapor Flies. And I had a big kind of debate with myself about what shoes to wear this morning, because I knew if I didn't wear a carbon plated shoe that I was probably at a disadvantage against everyone else, which is stupid because I wasn't really racing against anybody else. I was racing against myself. But, we're now in that mindset that you need a carbon plated shoe to run fast and to be competitive. And, it's not great for the youngsters coming forward just because of the price of them. But yeah, they're here to stay. So we've just got to get on with it.
Yeah, and that's very true. And so we'll move on slightly. So we'll talk about nutrition. So we've got 2 questions actually here. But one is, what's your go-to post food? And then there's another one here as well, and it says, if you couldn't do running, what would your alternative sport be? But let's talk about nutrition first.
Yeah. I'm not massive strict on nutrition. I eat healthy as much as I can, everything in moderation, but I never block anything out. So, if I want chocolate, I'll eat chocolate, which is most days. If I want a takeaway, if I want a beer, I've got a beer sitting waiting here for tonight. And just, you've got to be able to enjoy life, just not make it so strict. There's very, very few of us need to look so close into their nutrition to get that final 1%, worry about the rest of your training and everything else before you do that. But after kind of marathon in particular, I will get kind of, the recovery foods, and it's normally chocolate milk and some sorbet, and then kind of meal straight after, well, not straight after, a couple of hours after is normally burger, chips and a beer. And it's all good. It's kind of, protein in the burger. You're replacing your salt with salts on the fries.
I mean, when I first did a marathon, I went to McDonald's. I wouldn't recommend it, but it was the nearest place. So I think that helped.
After Berlin, I was like, we were walking back and we walked past McDonald's. I was like, I need salty fries. And I went in and bought like 2 bags of salty fries.
So Ben's saying here, he's saying that, what's your favourite nutrition to use? Is there anything particular that you would use?
I've just started using the enhanced recovery drinks for after. They're slightly different to your normal recovery drinks because they've got quite a high omega-3 content. And because I've had a bit of a knacky Achilles, omega-3s are good for tendon health. So I've been using them after hard sessions, long runs, after a race. Some days I like the taste, so I'll just have one for the sake of having one. I'll use Revies for energy pre-race. I try not to use caffeine before training. I'd keep it for races, so you're getting that kind of extra edge. If I'm really, really knackered and, just feeling a bit kind of sluggish, I might take a bit of caffeine before training. But I try to keep that. And during marathons and the 50K, I use Morton energy drinks and gels. And I found they sat really well on my stomach. I trained myself to be able to tolerate 90 grams of carbohydrates an hour, which is quite a lot.
That's
But
quite, yeah.
you know, it's kind of, I spoke to a few nutritionists and they said, try and get, 80, 85. And I was like, oh, I've managed 90. They're like, that's better. But, there's not many people can tolerate that. And it took a lot of training the gut to be able to tolerate that. And, it seems to have worked. I've never hit a wall yet, touch wood. But yeah, they're kind of my go-to nutrition products, and then just chocolate.
Yeah, well, I mean, the previous people that we've had, and they like chocolate as well. So
yeah. I've never come across a runner yet that doesn't like chocolate. There's actually, if it's dark chocolate as well, there's a lot of health benefits to it.
Yeah, we particular Gloria came in on the second episode. She absolutely loves dark chocolate. Yeah. So do you take any vitamins supplements, or would you do you believe?
I take magnesium because I have a history of having low magnesium levels, and I take a vitamin D supplement just because I live in the northeast of England and I don't see that much sunshine.
That's fair enough. So yeah, because some people say they don't work, and some people say they do. So it's interesting to know what others take. So when you first, what made you start off when you were a child? Because you've been running for quite a long time, haven't you? What made you what made you start? What made you want to run?
I was literally born into running. My dad was a marathon runner. He's done 221 back in his day, and the day I was born, he had to miss a 10k race for me being born. And I think it took him to standing on the sideline at Rio to forgive me for that. But yeah, so I was literally just born into it. Dragged around the country, watching him race as a youngster. I've got memories of being down at London Marathon in the early days and watching it, and being more interested in going to the Tower of London and London Dungeon than watching the marathon. But I joined the athletics club because when I went to secondary school, I made a new friend there, and she was a member of the club, and they were going to Flamingo Land, a theme park up here during the school holidays. So I joined the club to go to Flamingo Land, and it's quite apt because I've had quite a roller coaster journey in the athletics world since then. So yeah, that's when I think I was about 11 or 12 when I joined, and I've not looked back since.
Okay, so when you started, so you've been running for so long, and from when you were a child. So who inspired you? And someone's asked here, what are your top 3 favourite runners?
The big one that kind of made us dream about the Olympics was Jill Hunter. So she's a local lass. She's from just along the road in Bladen. Kind of trained with my dad quite often. I'd see her when I was going to watch my dad doing the local road races. I'd see her running, and then I remember being stuck to my TV screen watching the Barcelona Olympics in '92, and she ran the 10,000 there, and she wasn't spectacular. I think she was about 12th or something like that, but I just got that kind of sudden realization that she's a normal person just like me. She's from Bladen. She's not I looked at people like Linford Christie and Sally Gunnell and thought they were ultra human sort of thing, and they were all from down south because you had to be from down south to do well. There wasn't many people from up north on the team and that. But with Jill, because I'd seen her about and I'd spoken to her and that, and she was just a normal, down-to-earth Geordie. And yeah, she was the one that kind of got me dreaming about the Olympics. And then when I left school, I always remember, I must have been about 15, 16 at the time, writing in my ambitions book, what do you want to do when you're older? And it was like, if I stick in with my running, I'd like to run the marathon at the Olympics. And then 25 years later, there I was on the start line. So yeah, it's kind of, there's a few people along the way that I looked up to. At the time, Liz McColgan was doing really well at the marathon. She was winning London. So that kind of was quite inspiring. Then Paula came onto the scenes, and watching her kind of run, 2:15 at London, you couldn't really relate to it because, you know, it's 2:15. You know, I still can't relate to it. It's my 10K pace. And yeah, you know, but just seeing again a British girl beating the Africans, because it started to get to that point where, you know, Africans were winning everything. And yeah, we had her, then Mara, people like Liz Yellen, and you know, they were just all normal people. And I think that's what really grabbed me and inspired us.
That's really good. Yeah, and it's inspiring hearing you chat. And talking about you talk British people doing really well. What about the record that went the 5K record a few weeks back by Beth Potter? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I know Beth. We roomed in the same apartment when we were in Rio, and I've known her for a few years, and I've watched her progress. And then obviously she moved to triathlon. You know, she's doing really, really well at triathlon. Unfortunately for her, it's kind of probably 6 months too late for the Olympic team because the Olympic triathlon's already been selected. But yeah, I'm sure she won't mind us saying, but you know, I didn't see that coming at all. You know, I thought, you know, she ran on that course and I was in the same race as her last August and she ran 15:24. And, you know, I thought, oh, she might run 15:20. You know, it's her first race out for a while. I know she'd done an indoor triathlon the weekend before, but you're still pretty rusty. And then watching her on the live stream doing that, I was like, yeah, there's only really 2 races that I've watched live and thought there's something wrong here. And that was one of them. I was like, this clock's not right. I was like, you know, no offense to Beth, and like I say, I'm sure she won't mind us saying, but you know, she's not a 14:41 athlete. And then, you know, it started coming through like, yeah, it is right. And, you know, I think she was as shocked as anyone. And it's quite, you know, it's upsetting and disappointing that it won't be ratified as a world record because she's ran that time, so she deserves to have her name down in the history books. But at the end of the day, nobody can take away that she ran 14:41, and you know, it was, you know, I'm sure she's probably still in shock right now about it.
I've seen the photo. She looks in shock. Yeah, it's an amazing time. So let's talk. So I won't keep you much longer. So if you could be a beginner, if you can give a beginner runner one tip, what would it be?
Don't do too much too early. You know, it's a cliche saying don't run before you can walk, but literally you see so many beginners and they'll say, I can't run more than 100 meters. And it's because they're literally stepping out the door and sprinting 100 meters. You know, just take a step back. Nobody's bothered about what pace you're running. You know, just build up on your distance, just a little bit faster than a walking pace. Something where you're not literally gasping for air and wanting to stop and be sick after 3 minutes. Just keep it comfortable and yeah, just find a love for it. And you know, a lot of people say I can't find a love, whatever, and you will eventually because that's what keeps you going. It's not, you know, the PBs or whatever because they'll dry up eventually. It's your love for it, it's enjoyment for it. It's, you know, it might be the social scene for it, but you'll find some sort of love and you'll get addicted eventually.
Yeah, I was definitely. I mean, I started in 2012, and I was inspired by Olympics, and yeah, it's just I've been addicted ever since. So yeah, isn't it? It does yeah, it's an addiction really, and it's a good addiction.
It is. There's a lot worse things you could be addicted to.
Yeah, yeah. So you're at your age now. So what would you do? Would there be anything you would do different from the you tell your younger self?
Don't stop at 18 Mile in Chicago.
Okay. And what happened there for people that don't?
Yeah, I wasn't in the best shape. I was trying to convince myself that I was in better shape than what I was. But at the end of the day, it wasn't great weather. It was cold, it was wet, it was windy, and that just got to us. I was getting slower, I was getting colder, and yeah, it was just one of those where I had to make that ultimate decision of I can't go on without risking my health. I was very, very close to kind of hypothermic because I don't react very well with the cold. I've got very bad circulation. I've got Raynaud's, and yeah, kind of it's not great, me in the cold. So sadly, I had to make that decision at 18 miles. And now looking back, I just wish I'd get in a jumper or something off somebody and just carried on. But I'll go back one day and finish Chicago.
Oh, good luck for it. That sounds scary. Like especially when you're cold. You can get to a world of problems. So we'll wrap it up. Just a couple more questions. So is this your full-time job?
Not really, no. It's obviously quite hard because of COVID and everything, but I'm coaching part-time. I linked in with Team Project Run and started coaching for them at the beginning of February. And I've been looking for kind of a proper job, but it's hard because of the situation we're in just now. I was full-time from March 2015 through to kind of, if you look at it in terms of professional contracts, my Nike contract finished the end of last year, just gone. So I'm no longer classed as professional in those terms. But it's kind of not really a full-time job anymore.
Okay, so you've moved more into coaching then, and you're looking to move into that. Okay, so all right, the last question then. So future plans and goals.
I haven't really got any because it's hard to know what the world's going to be like over the next kind of 6 to 12 months. I'd love, like I said, to go back to Chicago and get that one ticked off. It would give us my 6-star major, but also because I've run Olympics and a Worlds, I'd only be the second female. Well, currently there's only one female done all 6 majors plus an Olympics and a Worlds.
Oh, wow.
And there's 3 of us kind of battling to do that last one. So I've got Chicago to do. Deena Kastor has got Berlin to do, and Joan Bonut Samuelson has got Tokyo to do. So I've got 2 pretty big names that I'm battling against for that second place. But Chicago is one of these things where I could literally say I'm going to go back and do it for my 50th or my 60th. I don't really want to leave it that long, but it's not like an Olympics or a Worlds where you've got a time constraint on it because you've got to qualify. So, but that's kind of the only thing now that I want to tick off, and then I can put my slippers on and sit back and just enjoy life.
It's fair enough. And there's one more question just coming, and that'll be it. I don't want to hold you anymore. So what is your favourite running movies? Is there anything that psychs you up before a race or something?
I don't think I've seen many running movies. I think the only one that I've seen is the Prefontaine ones. So Prefontaine and Without Limits. And I think the better one of those 2 is Prefontaine. But I don't think I've seen any specific running movies.
Okay, that's fair enough. So no more questions. So thanks for coming on the show, and it's very inspiring talk and hearing your views and listening to your journeys. It's very inspiring. Thanks for coming on, and
thanks for having me.
Thank you, and thanks guys for watching. And I'll be back soon with another episode with another guest. Thanks again, guys.